here we go. Another tie-in video. What we're trying to do here for my Project Healing Waters Club or chapter is we're trying to build fundamental skills and work our way up. So another nice easy pattern, but also a very, very productive pattern. For those who don't know, I used to fish nymphs a lot. I do not fish them as much as I used to, but this is one of the patterns I really like. Not necessarily as the dropper or point fly when I fish a bunch of flies, but a little bit up the shank. This is a size 14, so you can see it a little better, but I actually prefer to fish it in size 16 and 18. One of the things that I have found is when you fish nymphs, it really pays to have at least one, maybe even two smaller nymphs to go with a larger nymph that gets everything sunk. What do you need for this particular fly? Well, I guess you start with a hook. This is a Fulling Mill 50-45. It's the jig hook style. Then you're also going to need some dubbing, and you're going to need a bead head. The bead head is right here. Any slotted bead will do for this particular kind of hook. And as far as dubbing goes, I'm going to use the SLF squirrel fibers. I really like squirrel for nymph. I like a dubbing twister. And of course, some wax. I also am starting to use this bobbin here. You may have seen it before or not. It's Stonefo's new bobbin. You can see the Stonefo right there. They're not cheap. I think they're 65 bucks each, but I like a heavy bobbin. I like it for holding my hackles in place, and I just like to work with it. I think it's more comfortable than a lighter bobbin. I think it's more effective than a lighter bobbin. So the thread I'm using is Semper Fly Nano 18-0. The first thing is, when I was getting into nymph fishing many years ago, there's a guy who wrote a bunch of books on nymph fishing by the name of Charles Brooks. Really knowledgeable guy. And he inspired me in a lot of ways to get heavy into fly fishing. And he had a quote about nymphs: if you're not catching enough fish, put a little more weight on. So, in a little preemptive strike, I have a .010 lead wire here. And I am going to try here. I can't go that tight because every time I go tight with this lead, I keep breaking it off. Okay. There we go. Put a few turns of thread over the top of this. It broke right away. Sometimes you have to go round and around like a wheel. Okay. And I'm just securing this into place. This is about as easy a fly as you can possibly get to tie. It's up there with the woolly bugger, which we're going to do next tonight. The idea is to educate all the guys in my Project Healing Waters chapter and then make this available for anybody else who wants to learn about it. Okay, so in the Sexy Walt, you're going to use as a rib a piece of pearlescent flash. And this stuff's sulky. This is really durable. It's exceptionally durable, more so than most tinsel. So, and it's also nice and thin. So it makes an outstanding rib. So that's what I'm going to use for my ribbing material. And I prepared the dubbing ahead of time to show you that I'm mixing two dubbings because I don't usually like just one solid color. So I have an olive brown and an olive. And I put them together and created two dubbing loops. You'll see them here in the photograph that I'm expressing for you. Particular loop of dubbing, and then I'm going to put it onto my fly. Now, a guy who had a big influence on me as a tyer is a man by the name of Paul Schwack, and not a lot of people know Paul, but Paul was a gifted tyer, really knowledgeable. And one of the things he always impressed upon me was the idea of wrapping back and forward, back and forward. So I'm going to take the dubbing that you just saw, I'm going to lay it on my shank, spread it out a little bit. That's what I'm doing right now, making it nice and airy. And then This is the dubbing loop method. I'm going to loop it around. Now, I take my dubbing loop twister and I put it in. And years ago when I was doing this, I would just spin the twister and let everything spin. But I found it to not be as effective as this other technique when I grab the dubbing loop. I'm going to slide this up just to show you. I'm going to grab the dubbing loop just, and I mean just, below the dubbing, and I'm going to spin the spinner. Don't see anything yet, but now watch. You let go, and everything flies all over the place. I'll do it one more time. And now, I'm just going to pick it out here, rather than pick it out. Well, I'll also pick it out once I tie it around the hook shank. It's a nice tight, very tight dubbing loop. And then what I do, use my third hand, make a half hitch under here. It started to undo a bit, so I'll twist it again a little bit. Okay, and I just wrap it here, working my way down. And back again. This makes sure I don't leave any holidays. If you're my age, you can remember what that term means. My dad would have me wax the car for him, and he would tell me all the time, don't leave any holidays. And that was any spot that wasn't buffed out after you put the wax on. So I'm not leaving any holidays. And now I got a nice spiky body here. I think this looks as much as anything like a bit of a cased caddis or a caddis worm. I take 2 turns here, and then a pretty slick trick is to just wrap the rest of the dubbing stuff around your regular thread. Put it on. Snip. And then tie off with a whip finish. And that, oh, I almost forgot to put the rib on. Would that have been something? Get that out of your way. Here's the rib. Now, supposedly, you do it counter, or whatever the opposite direction that you put the dubbing on. I don't think it's ever really made that big a difference. So this is how we make a waltz worm, a sexy waltz worm. And I wrap it right up the body like that. Twice around the thread. No slippage there with that little wrap around the thread. I also like to bend it back once right here. Good. And now I'm ready to whip finish. Almost got ahead of myself before. 1, 2. 3, 4. A slick little trick to cover up the thread if you want to. Totally up to you. Some people like to use a brighter colored thread. And leave a little bit of a hotter spot there. If you don't like to do that, you can just leave a little bit of thread on here like this. 1, 2, 3. Pull tight. And that thread will be covered by some dubbing. And the dubbing makes a little bit of a collar right around the fly. Look a little bit like tackle. The last thing that I'm going to do is pick it out. I just take my dubbing needle, I run it between the ribs. That's my dog snoring. I like, earth tones. I like olives. Olive nymphs seem to produce really well in the Delaware, which is where this guy will be fished. A little roughing it up with a dubbing brush. And there is an olive Walt's worm. Get rid of this guy just because I'm a little neurotic with that. And that. And there, good and W. I know some people like a tight body and they don't like any spikiness at all to it. I do like a little bit of spikiness. I like a little bit of beef in that body as it's being drifted through the water column like a case caddis, or perhaps a mayfly nymph.